I moved to Dubai 15 years ago, and of course Dubai is a very consumptive, materialistic, disposable culture. And I'm from a background, a family of sort of frugal and self-reliant traditions. So I think it became particularly striking to me making that sort of exponential shift to a place which was so different from what I was used to. I think the thing that I found striking about the UAE was the fact that the landscape was almost entirely natural and undeveloped, which means it's never been altered at any point in its history by people. And that was something that I was unfamiliar with at that time and excited by. I work very much on my own. I go out into the desert, I research locations, I spend a lot of time studying the landscape on Google Earth and finding oddities or industrial intrusions in the landscape, and I make it my business to go and visit those places and find out what's going on. My working practice is quite a emotional one for me. I feel very much emotionally attached to landscapes, and quite often I'm quite moved or upset by things that I see.
My inspiration is the Dhaka city itself, because of it's a overpopulated city. There is no good enough plan for making a good city, because they are always doing something which is not good for the people's health and people's living. I just try to focus on why this river is polluted, and I found that the peoples of the city, they are the main cause, and river now is almost die. It's chemical in the river, and we get the bad smell from the water. I shoot on film camera still. You have to click by thinking which one is very important for you and which one is not, because of it's not a memory card, and though you cannot show it, so you have to process it, and then you can see it what is in your negative. So that's why I wait and I focus which one is important for my story and which one is not, then I click.
My interest in photographing water kind of stemmed from an early interaction I had with photography, which was a very emotional engagement with photography when I was exposed to it. And so I came across photography by chance by looking at a book by Richard Avedon. And so I was compelled, I was inspired, I was very engaged to photograph, to understand the world. And when you start going down this path of looking at the world through photography, you start finding that looking at things that are emotionally engaging, that you're invested in, is important. And when it comes to water, this is something that affects everyone. This is something that touches on every aspect of people's lives. My creative process, in a nutshell, in a very small way, is to be as fluid and to be as dynamic in my approach, to learn and to be a student of what I'm photographing, so that the people that I am focusing my camera on, and also the people that are looking at my work, can come away with it and say, okay, this is a human thing, this is something that I can relate to. And so when I started the project in Sierra Leone, I started taping up all across my wall all the different ideas that I had of how to photograph this aesthetically, in terms of content, how to layer it, what I need to investigate. Is the format I'm using good enough? What do I need to improve on? Do I want this to be diptychs and two pictures side by side? I was going through a process where I was merging my creative desire to push myself with the content that needed to be talked about in a different way. What does photography do then? Well, if photography is something that can transcend language, and this is something I believe, photography can transcend language, it can transcend thought to a certain degree, to me. It can emotionally engage you when you least expect it. And that's the beauty of it. That's the hardest part to do for me. And that's also the hardest part, I think, in any craft to achieve, is that it requires a whole lot of challenges to reach. And when you take that idea, you say, okay, well, personal challenge and water, why are these two things important? Why do they go hand in hand? Well, if I'm not challenging myself to approach this topic as best as I can, how can I expect anyone to look at my work and think this person actually cares?
How do I hope the people will respond to my picture? I hope really at the first moment they will be shocked. And maybe I hope also that the picture will stay with them and come back in 1 week or 1 month's time and put some question, the right question. Why and how we arrived there at this point. And I really hope and wish that the picture will work as a memento for the people. The most important challenge on waste and scarcity after my experience of this work and other works that I've done later on is to change the mind of the people and to change the way how we work, how we live, how we consume. That it's the big challenge, because all this problematic, some part shown with my picture, but I can think about climate change, for instance, is deeply linked to a way of life that we cannot afford anymore, because we have to change. But this is actually the big deal of contemporary society.
My work is a combination of fiction and documentary. I lived for a month in Umanak, an isolated island north of Greenland, twinned with the French town of Granville. There, I faced the same problems that people living in the Great North: global warming, pollution, the Arctic conquest, and the violent way modernity happened there all of a sudden. This photo was taken in the city, which is located on the ice field right next to people's houses. The waste is burned there in open air. This is responsible for a major pollution with dioxin. Every village in Greenland is facing the same problem. A few years ago, people were living off hunting and fishing. Now, a lot of products are imported. It's very important to find another way to get rid of this waste, or just import biodegradable products. I'm really happy to be a part of this exhibition. I think it's important to show the problem of the Great North. People living there need help. For now, they are still fighting, and life there is wonderful. But there is another solution, which could be moving to the capital city Nuuk, where life is more modern, where you can find a job, and where young people could have a brighter future.
I'm always trying to find elevated views of the places that I photograph, because once you're elevated, it's much easier to depict air pollution, because you need kind of a photograph that covers a certain amount of space, because then you can really recognize the reduction of visibility through air pollution. So I shot it from top of the TV tower. And this city is, Shijiazhuang is the city, it's the biggest city and the capital of the Hebei province. And the Hebei province is one of the most industrialized areas in China, and because of that, of course, it's one of the most polluted areas of China. It's actually a quite fascinating phenomenon. If you look at it from a photographer's perspective, you know, it's like this very surreal atmosphere you're in. It's almost like a painting. The photographs I do, they're almost romantic, they're poetic in a way, but they're not, because the reality behind it is very harsh, it's very brutal. You know, a lot of people die because of it. Air pollution is waste, and because of that waste, fresh air is becoming scarce in many places around the world. So I'm kind of showing both sides of the theme, I think, in my photographs. So it's great to see that there's so many photographers that are devoting their time and their money to create works that matter, that are important, and that's exactly what you can see in this exhibition.